Kia ora mai tātou katoa, kua tatu mai tēnei rā. Ka tika ka tuku ngā mihi tuatahi ki ngā uri whānui o Tāhiti, o ngā mautere katoa o te moana nui a kiwa, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, my name is Dentice, and I come from from Aotearoa, a big little island in the South Pacific. And I have come here to talk about coexistence, man and the environment. Now, coming up with the title for this talk, I didn't really know what to call it or what to say. I thought maybe I should put in coexistence, a journey, the man and the environment, but I just left it coexistence, man and the environment. And the key reason for that is because within a Māori worldview, when you were born, you're born to coexist with your environment. So when a child is born, the placenta of that child is buried into the whenua. And the Māori word for placenta is also whenua. So from that moment in time, when your whenua is put into the whenua, you have cemented your relationship with the earth, with Papa Tuanuku, and you coexist with her and around her. But along the way, in this journey of coexistence, you kind of lose your way and you get caught up in all sorts of other things. You get caught up in, I don't know, buying a house and buying a car and doing all sorts of crazy things. And you forget the impact of your relationship with your mother Earth. And for me, it was a journey of revelation, and I always wanted to be close to my environment. So I went to university and I did a history degree, I did a geography degree, and I even did a master's of resource management and planning. Crazy, I know. And then I spent 4 years doing policy around the environment. And what I found out through that, however long that was, 8 years, 9 years, was that this thing called resource management, or this thing called managing our environment, managing our ecosystem, managing our rivers, managing our land, is kind of a lie. It's not actually about managing your environment or your land or your water. It's actually about managing your relationship with those things, because it's us who puts the negative impact on those places, on those things. So it's about managing us and coexisting with our environment. So that's why I framed my talk today around the word coexistence. It's also quite a nice utopian idea that we might be able to coexist with our environment and move away from this extractive, destructive relationship that we currently have, where we think that we own things. All of a sudden I've got a piece of paper, now I own this land and I can do whatever I want with this land, to the detriment of everything else around it, and not recognizing the symbiotic relationship that that piece of land or that stream or that river has with everything else. We see things in isolation. And so we've been caught up in this world where we have a piece of paper and we have a right to do something. We have a piece of paper, we have dominion and control over something. I want to change that paradigm. I want to change that thinking. I want us to think differently about our environment and how we interact with it. So I've proposed, I've looked at people who have been able to shift that thinking from resource management, environmental management, or ownership rights, dominion, to something else, something different. And I've come up with 3 points. There's probably way more than 3, let's be honest. There's probably at least 100. But I've come up with 3 points. And the first point is that in order to lead change, and to change the paradigm, to change thinking, you've got to be disruptive. And you've got to be the protagonist. You've got to be the positive deviant that projects new ideas, that sees the impossible as possible, that in the echoes of laughter, you still move forward with your idea, with your crazy thought. And so I'm going to talk about Te Urewera, which is one of my homelands back in New Zealand. And for those of you who don't know, Te Urewera is a block of land. It's pretty big. I don't know how big specifically, but it's pretty big. And it's the home of my people, Ngai Tūhoe, the tribal people of Tūhoe. And this land used to be a national park, which was owned by the government, by the Crown. I use government, Crown, they're both the same. But today, in 2017, this land owns itself. It's its own legal personality. It's its own legal identity. Crazy, right? How can a piece of land with some streams and a river and a lake or two own itself? And it's these crazy ideas that move us forward and project a new possibilities, a new futures, new opportunities. Te Urewera. The second point is the journey from Te Urewera being controlled and governed by the government to owning itself required patience, resilience, time, perseverance, and a whole lot of things. Because the journey started in 1840 when New Zealand was colonized. From that point in time, our relationship with our environment has changed. We had been dispossessed of our relationship with our mother, with our earth, with our river, with our streams. And so, from that period, we've been trying to get back that relationship, get back that intimate relationship that we had with our earth, with our mother, with our whenua. And in 2014, leaders from within my tribe of Ngai Tūhoe were able to do that. They were able to present this idea that maybe because originally our people actually sought to own the land. They didn't want to own it in terms of a Western sense of ownership with exclusion of all others. They just saw that the only legal mechanism that was available to them at that time was to actually own it, and then from that they will be able to reforge the relationship that they lost. But the Crown, the government, being the government, they don't like giving over power, control, dominion, all these sorts of things, said no, there is no way that we're going to give you ownership. So they went back and they talked and they had conversations and researched and explored other options for how this might work, how we might be able to reforge our relationship with our lands. And they decided, let's remove the word ownership from the conversation. Let's say that no one owns this piece of land. And then the conversation changed. And then we created Te Urewera, a forest, our ngahere, our provider, our mother, our marae, that sustains us and is his own legal person. The third point is that in order to create a paradigm shift, a change in thinking, we've got to go from challenging the status quo, being disruptive, to working hard, being resilient and moving through the motions of time. And then we've got to get to a point where we create something which is fair and just. Because if it's not fair and just, then how do people associate with it? How are people going to buy into it? So the creation of Te Urewera, this thing that used to be a national park, into a legal person, was purely but the legalization or utilizing a legal tool to make a tradition that we've known for centuries to be true, legal. We've always known that this land is our mother. All we needed to do was just get a piece of paper to say that. And we know that to be innately true. and it's something which drives our principles, our values as human beings. It doesn't matter if you're Māori, Pacific Islander, from anywhere. You understand that relationship and that connection, so you can get it. So it was crucial that what was created was understood by all. Now, 2017, 3 years on, and we're still on this journey because we've been disassociated with coexistence for such a long time that we've got to kind of recreate it and sort of move through the motions of understanding what it looks like and what it feels like and what it is to coexist. And this, in some respects, is a physical representation of that. This is a living building. And in 2012, this building was constructed. And it's the only living building in New Zealand currently. And it's right in the heart, well, depends where you're from within Te Urewera, but it's in the heart of Te Urewera. And this building is, self-sufficient. It's got solar heating. It deals with its own stormwater, rainwater, everything. But the key element of it is that it's a living building. It sucks in life and gives out life. So in some respects, that's what coexistence is about, is taking and absorbing life and then giving it out again as well. It's not some stagnant building that just stands there and does nothing and looks pretty. It gives life. It gives being. It has a mauri. A mauri within Māori, it means a life force in its simplest form. In its most complex form, everything has a mauri, and mauri is everything. And so this is what that is. So I guess I just go back to my last 3 points, is that it's about changing the paradigms requires disruption. Second point, you've got to work hard. You've got to be perseverant. 177 years it took for this to happen. And you've got to create something which is fair and just. So, anō reira, ngā mihi kaua nā rā kia koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa. Merci.